Hello, welcome to Easy Does It. This is a show where Easy does it, and by does, I mean talks, and by it, I mean about sports and related things. I'm gonna wait for a bit of an audience to trickle in before I really get into my rants, but oh boy, do I have a lot to talk about today. A lot of Bears stuff I want to get into. A decent bit of some, uh, happenings from around the rest of the NFL, around the league, offseason stuff. And then I want to talk some Cubs Cubs baseball. And I got a special guest for that, which should be pretty cool. But yeah, definitely a fun show planned today. Um, we got definitely we are right in the thick of the NFL offseason, which is I think one of the most exciting times of year. What up, Anthony? Welcome to the show, man. I think the NFL offseason is one of the coolest, most fun times of the year. It's just fun to wake up and see news about things happening. Um, and with that in mind, I'm gonna open by talking a little bit about some of the stuff going on in the world of football. Starting with the NFL, starting with within the division. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, hot topic on this show. Unfortunately, it has to be that way. Hopefully, it doesn't have to be that way for very long. And the rumor is, he's talking to the Jets, hopefully getting traded soon. Um, that's the dream, right? We don't really want to deal with this guy any longer than we have to. But it's really taking its time. He's really taking his time talking to the Jets and meeting with them. And right now, it's just like it's getting nauseating waiting for his response. I'm sure Packers fans are very annoyed by it, which is good. But me as a Bears fan, I'm annoyed by it too because I want to know who I'm going to be dealing with this year. I want to know if we're going to be preparing for one of the best quarterbacks the league has ever seen, or if we're going to be preparing for Jordan Love, because that kind of changes the entire landscape, not just of the NFC North, but also of the NFC in general. Speaking of the NFC in general, finally, NFC they got an upgrade at the quarterback position in the NFC South. Derek Carr going to the New Orleans Saints after spending the first 9 or so years of his career in Oakland/Las Vegas as a Raider. It's an interesting move for the Saints, and it's an interesting move for Carr, and it's because Derek Carr goes from being far and away, without question, the worst quarterback in his division. I guess maybe not without question. Russell Wilson had a tough year this year, but let's be real. Wilson is on his way to the Hall of Fame. Justin Herbert's great, and Mahomes is Mahomes. Derek Carr was the worst quarterback in that division, and now he goes across the country to the NFC South into New Orleans, and he is instantly the best quarterback in the NFC South. The Panthers quarterback is it Coral? Is it Darnold? Either way, I mean, Carr's better than whoever it is. Atlanta, still don't know what you have in Desmond Ridder. And then you got Tampa Bay with Kyle Trask replacing the great Tim Brady. So, yeah, Derek Carr easily makes the Saints, in my opinion, favorites to win the NFC South. They should be pretty good this year. They still have a really nice defense. And we'll see. Back when Matt Stafford was traded from the Lions to the Rams, I said, we've seen. I know what this guy could do. He's a really good quarterback. He's just been on a bad, kind of a joke of a franchise for a long time. Sure enough, he wins the Super Bowl the next year. I don't know if Carr is in the same echelon as Stafford was when Stafford was with the Lions, but Carr's a pretty good quarterback. Like he could play, and he's going to a team with a real defense now. The Raiders have played joke defense for a very, very long time. Now he's going to a team that actually has a defense and a team that is consistently competitive in games. And when they're not competitive, it's because their offense isn't doing anything, because they haven't had a quarterback since Drew Brees. Well, now they do. Nothing against Jameis Winston, but he's just been hurt all the time. Now you got Derek Carr, really solid, like the definition of a solid player, and I'm interested to see how this works out for them. Because right now the Saints are in a position where they should run away with the division, unless Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta just have mammoth off seasons. But so far, nothing much on that end. I'm going to talk a little Bears because I feel like a lot of Bears fans are getting, we're getting very antsy, and that's understandable. We just have to remember the most important thing right now, and that is we got to fix the line. Defensive line, especially. Offensive line, yes, sure. I still, we always say our offensive line was trash this last year. Let's pump the brakes on that. It wasn't trash. It was really good. They did a really good job in regard to the run game. I feel like the Bears ran the ball very well this past year. It's the pass protection that really needs work. Let's make sure we're calibrating a little bit. But yeah, the main thing that the Bears need to do is fix the line, fix the trenches, both sides of the ball, especially defensive line. Okay. People often saying, oh, well, Justin Fields, he doesn't win. He hasn't won anything in the NFL. Worst record as a starter. It's hard to win games when you don't have a pass rush. How many 3rd and 8s did we see other teams convert this season? Not because the secondary couldn't hold up, because the secondary did a decent job most of the time, but because no one was getting any pressure. Remember, guys, the most important thing in this league still, I don't care, besides the quarterback position, I don't care what Mahomes has done. I mean, I do care. It's awesome. But, the most important thing you could do in the NFL, to be a decent team and to give you a chance to win most games, is get after the quarterback. The Eagles and Chiefs both had really, really good pass rushes this year. The Bengals have a good pass rush. That's why they were in the AFC Championship. The Niners, anchored by Nick Bosa, you got to be able to get to the quarterback, and that's something the Bears have not been able to do. I'm going to move on from football for a little bit because I do have a guest who I'd like to bring on the show and talk a little, let's talk about the younger Bears for a little while. I want to talk about the baby Bears, the Chicago Cubs, who have made some very interesting offseason moves. Ultimately, I'm pretty optimistic about the offseason, and I'll get more into this specifically with my guest. But, there are definitely some moves that are still very questionable, in my opinion. They definitely did some things that I don't love here and there. Mainly getting rid of their catcher, Wilson Contreras. Not just getting rid of him, but allowing him to go to St. Louis to fill in the void left by Cardinals great Yadier Molina. I don't love that the Cubs were not more aggressive in re-signing Wilson Contreras. However, they did make some interesting, probably good moves too. They signed a lot of players who have a lot of experience winning. And this season could go a lot of different ways. They could, I guess, it's very, it's cheap to be able to say they could be a great team. They could be a terrible team. This time it really feels like there's a lot of volatility in how the Cubs are going to do. But so far I've been very encouraged by what I've seen in this spring training. I do like the group of prospects that they put together. I'm not as over the moon about it as some Cubs fans are, but I do think things are headed in the right direction in that regard. So with that being said, I want to introduce my guest. This guy is Brian Burns. He's a great guy, MLB insider, so to speak. He's very well connected. He ran. I don't know if I should mention that he ran the Facebook page to 217 Problems for a while, but that had a huge following, a lot of fans for 4 or 5 years or so. But I'm gonna let him on the show because I could tell he really wants to talk. So, come on, Brian, MLB Insider.
I'm MLB Insider because I watch MLB Network every day while I'm at work. It's on in the background.
That counts. I count that as something.
Yeah. So this off season kind of, the Cubs were supposed to sign people, right? We didn't know exactly what they were going to do. Is Jed lying to us? I feel like a lot of people are like, is Jed lying to us? Are they just going to give us a bunch of hope and then not sign anybody? And then they did, right? And, you were just talking about Wilson. And, I feel like depending on the day, I'm conflicted on how I feel about that. Some days I'm like, we should have signed him. Other days I'm like, well, I feel like, look at when Dexter went to the Cardinals. That didn't do anything, really.
Sure.
I think as long as they don't win a ring, I'll let him hit 15 home runs and drive in 60 RBIs and have some moments that are like, that sucks. But at the end of the day, he's still coming to all the reunions. You know.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe not for a little while because I do know, like
Of all the stuff he
he said some not so nice things about the Cubs organization recently,
Mhm.
and I don't blame him honestly. Like I think that's just kind of who he is. That's not just who he is as
Well,
like that.
look at what Dansby said about Atlanta sports. I feel like the most common thing that is an overreaction is a new star saying something about where he came from. He's being paid a lot of money to say something really nice about his new place and kind of shed his other place in a not so bright light because like Dansby said that yeah, Atlanta sports is nice, but it's just not Chicago, which is true. But there are a lot of people like, shut the F up, like, Dansby, like, you're a traitor, like, all the same stuff that we're saying about Wilson, right? Now,
Right,
Atlanta,
right. So we'll
you
say,
and I don't, Atlanta, you'd have to really dig through Twitter to find that because it's just not intense. I just happen to see it. But, I do think it's an overrated storyline a little bit when people get wrapped up in what other people say when they get signed in a new place because they're just paid, they ask the question, they're not going to be like, oh, yeah, I wish I was still in Atlanta. He's not going to say that.
right.
Yeah,
and also, I just want to add, this is part of Contreras' game. Like, he wants to say things that are going to get in people's head. And that's kind of why I was very much in favor of keeping him because, like, you want a player who adds that kind of edge, You like having a player who has his feistiness and his tenacity. And, it sucks to see that St. Louis is going to have that. And I just know, even though I don't think he's going to bring the Cardinals to the next level necessarily, but I do think he's going to have some moments in some games against the Cubs that will piss us off collectively. I think there's going to, there's going to be some times like, fuck, I wish I had that guy still.
And it's going to be that fist pump that to end an inning when our catcher strikes out,
Exactly. And it's going to be things that he's the definition of a guy that you love to play with and you hate to play against. You good? You there? We lost Brian, kind of, but I'm sure he's just getting out of his car and reconnecting.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm going to get light. Here we go.
Yeah.
No, so, yeah, there's going to be moments that are going to piss us off. But, I think long-term, and I hate to say it because I love Wilson too, right? Like, there's a lot of memories. Long term, I bet we're, because I feel like with Dex, we kind of felt long term that we knew that he wasn't going to be the same dude.
Sure. And the reason why I push back a little bit on the Dexter comparison is because one, Dexter's just like the sweetest guy in the world. Like he could go play for like, no, wait, the Cardinals are probably the worst example. Like if he went to play football for the Packers and like went to play in the NBA for the Heat. And played for the Cardinals, I'd still love Dexter Fowler because he's just like a sweet man. Wilson, he's a lot of things, but he's not a sweet guy. He's not like that. Like he's just not like that. Overbearing, super nice, smiley guy. And so that's why it's like, for the one thing, it's like it's going to be annoying. Also, Fowler did walk us off once in a game I stayed up to watch full 15 innings.
Just off Jason Hayward's glove.
Yep. Oh my God! It was like it was poetry in motion.
And Javi hit a home run right before that, and you're like, "We got this." And
then Javi hit the go-ahead home run in like the 15th inning, and we're just like, "Let's fucking go."
So this is MLB insider comparison stuff right here. So I'm thinking our current catcher unit reminds me of this unit, and you can tell me how old are you? Do you remember 2003 very much?
Well, okay. So my story is my dad got me into baseball when I was 7 in 2003. But he got me into it like NLDS, Braves, and then so like the 7th, like the 11th game I've ever like watched and paid attention to was the Bartman game. So I just thought that was kind of normal.
So you weren't really and so I was okay. I didn't realize
I was christened pretty early. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that we were age difference between us. I thought we were close in age. So, anyways, I think this current unit is Paul Bacco and Damian Miller.
Interesting. Okay, because I can see it.
Because Paul Bacco was all defense, no offense. Like if you got a double, if Paul Bacco had an extra base hit on you, you're losing that game. It's it's like
the Paul Bacco bunt in All-Star Baseball 05 is a cheat code. Just lay it down that third base line. He's on first every time. But yes, as in real life, he sucked at hitting.
Yeah, he did separate Ken Griffey Jr.'s shoulder. I remember that too. But anyways, because he hit a triple or whatever. So, and then Damian Miller was just like a guy that not a lot of offense, also known as defensive, but man, he was just like, he was clutch. He had a lot of big hits for that team. And, I just think Tucker Barnhart and Higgins can be a mixture of those two. I really do.
Well, it would be Barnhart and Gomes mostly, right?
Or Gomes, sorry, Gomes. Yeah, I've only watched games where I've seen Higgins play so far.
I can see that as well, and I also think it's nice having David Ross as a manager. You get that former catcher who has experience with being kind of slow, not being the best athlete in the world, but still finding ways to contribute offensively. And I do think that he's going to be able to get some of that out of Gomes, and also Barnhart's not a bad hitter per se. Like, he's had decent numbers. He gets on base a little bit. He's just not like he's not Wilson at the plate. That's the big thing.
Well,
but the fact is, when Gomes is catching, statistically, he makes the pitching staff so much better, especially my guy Kyle Hendricks. And I think that's huge.
Well, I think what's important too is that I saw in an interview that Tucker Barnhart's not going to switch hit anymore. He's going to stick to the left side.
Is he really?
Yeah,
that's interesting too.
So I think that's going to mean a lot too, because he said he just is able to be more consistent from that left side. So I think that's big.
Then you got a real platoon with he and Gomes.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. I think that unit could be a little bit more powerful, than Damian and Baco were. Not by much.
Right.
But I think, it's kind of one of those things where, there's no pitcher batting anymore in the NL, obviously. But I think we look at it as our pitcher or our catcher position is probably like a pitcher hitting.
Honestly, that's kind of what I'm saying. I do think, and this is what I said, this is one of my arguments against the NLDH is, I think catcher's going to become the new pitcher soon. Yeah. I think Wilson Contreras is Contreras, to me, he's not really so much a catcher as he is like a ball player. Like, he'll play DH against lefties. He'll play some first base and whatnot. But, like, really almost the last of a dying breed. Like, I do think we're going to get fewer and fewer really good offensive catchers. And it's going to become mostly a defensive position, especially with the way the game is going, with shifts getting reduced and pitch counts, and the pitch clock just completely influencing everything. I think that you're going to need someone who's going to be able to call a good game above anything else. So I'm glad you say that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like, I had a lot of memories of those, like good memories of that Paul Baco, Damian Miller thing. Like, I'm sure there was times where I was frustrated as hell because they didn't, mash the ball. But I loved when they were able to throw somebody out from second base, and with the stolen bases going up, which I'm kind of curious how much they're going to go up in terms of, I don't know. I'm really curious because being able to throw out base runners might be hell of important, more than it was the last 10 years.
I completely agree, and that's another reason why I was a little upset about Contreras, but also happy they got a guy like Barnhart who still's got a good arm, and Gomes could obviously throw well too. Like,
Baco probably couldn't hit anybody throwing over 95. But, man, he can throw the ball from his knees on an arrow to second base. And, I watched a dude live. I watched him at it live once. From foul line to foul line, pretty much throw a ball from foul line to foul line once. And he was just warming up. And I'm like, this dude who bats like $110.
Yeah.
And that just made me like, these guys are just in freakish skills. And Paul Baco, man, like I said, he wasn't much of a hitter. But that year or two,
I'm pretty sure they brought him in mostly to be like, I think they had him in 2003, and I think they re-signed him in 2004 to be like Greg Maddox's personal catcher, kind of David Ross and Lester. But hey, if Greg Maddux is depending on you to help him up his game and be at his best, that's generally the sign of someone who's pretty damn good at baseball.
Right. Look at what David Ross, a personal catcher, like he was. That first year he was basically know nothing. He was the easiest out in the Cubs lineup. And then
it became kind of a problem because it was like, okay, so we have 7 guys who could hit, and then Ross and Lester who could not hit worth a shit.
Right.
And then the next year, obviously 2016, it became kind of amazing because it's like
he wasn't an automatic out.
All of a sudden, Lester knew what he was doing with the bat, and Ross was like kind of having a renaissance year at the plate.
So, and I don't know do you have any questions for me of what I think about something? Because I want to take.
Oh, no, I want to know. Yeah, no, please. Yeah.
So, and this is kind of like the high-end optimism Cub fan thing. I like to think I'm pretty it depends on a lot of things. I think if Bellinger does well and the team is doing well, I think they trade for a couple prospects to get a piece or two to kind of make this year whatever it's going to be, like a push to at least the NLDS, right? Like I think that's. But I think if the team tanks, they use Bellinger to like almost make next year even better, right? Not tank, but let's just say they know they're 10, 12 games out of the first and maybe like 6 or 7 out of in the wild card. They're probably going to be like,
not just Bellinger, but I could see them absolutely trade like Bellinger for sure, kind of like Jock Peterson, who got us an interesting return in Bryce Ball, who might see some time this year, probably not yet, but still, interesting player. But Bellinger and I think Ian Happ could definitely be on the move.
Yeah, man. I have a weird relationship with Ian Happ. I needed Ian Happ to be what he was in 2017 when we kind of had more of a chance, and he was still in his development as a player. And I just thought, I mean, how many times did we talk about in that group we were in about, the Ian Happ experiment is over? Like
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. No.
And so the fact that I hate that Ian Happ has turned into an all-star after we were good because we needed him to be an all-star in 2017.
Yeah, and really, I mean, people forget 2017. I could forgive the team, but 2018, that year. Actually, we were so good, and people forget just how good the Cubs were that year because the Brewers just kind of shut him down at a certain point. I'm pretty sure.
So 18 is for sure.
Hurt. He was having an MVP year, and then he got hurt, and then things kind of started to fizzle out.
Yeah, no, 18 is for sure another like when he needed. I just know there's like a 2-year period where I just didn't like Ian Happ because I just thought.
No, it's fair.
Because everybody else succeeded right away. Schwarber, Baez, Bryant, everyone just took off right away. And the fact that Ian needed 2 years, well, I wasn't patient enough for that. I'm sure most Cubs
I think what happened is, if I remember correctly, is I think Ian Happ kind of got rushed to the bigs because Zobrist got hurt, I think, or someone went down. It might have been the whole Addison Russell fiasco that helped him get up a little early too. But either way, yeah, he definitely was very inconsistent his first few years in the league. And then last year he really he wasn't playing for a contract last year, but he showed out more. He played a lot better. Put up very Zobrist-like numbers. And that's why I'm kind of on the, I like the way, there's a reason Zobrist won 2 World Series in a row with 2 different teams. There's a reason he helped the Rays get there in 2008. And that's...
He was a superstar utility player. He really was.
Yes, exactly. And, someone who could contribute in that way from both sides of the plate, the same way Zobrist did. I feel like Happ is becoming that kind of player, and that's why I'm hoping the Cubs re-sign him. But at the same time, I'd understand why they wouldn't, because you got all these young outfielders. Obviously, PCA will be up next year. And I do think Bellinger is keeping the seat warm for PCA.
Right. I think we're seeing his ceiling though. Like
PCA?
I don't think, no, PCA. I'm in love. I'm saving all my money to buy all his baseball cards when he.
Hell yeah, that's what's up.
when he's a Cub. No, Ian Happ. I think we're seeing probably as good as what Ian Happ is.
Right.
And I think you want your left fielder to probably, and I say this as like a judgmental person who's watched the Barry Bonds of the world, the Juan Soto's, I don't know.
Right, you want your left fielder to rake.
To rake, and I feel like Ian Happ is like your mid-level raker. He's not.
Yeah, he's like a B player.
You can find Ian Happ.
Remember, he came up as a second baseman.
He
played all over the diamond, and that's why I'm like, I wish the Cubs would use him in this super utility type role, but I don't think they will, because now it seems like they have, that's kind of what they want from Morel, and of course a little bit of Wisdom, I guess, which I don't like Wisdom personally. I think great guy, I'm sure, but I don't like watching him play baseball.
I always think of him as fizzing out. We're 1-0 for 20 streak away from not seeing Wisdom anymore, right? Then I feel like he gets it in a 3 or 4 home run streak, and then it's cycle repeats itself. But
we very much go through cycles with Wisdom. That's true.
Yeah. So what I think about the Cubs, and this is the most optimistic Cub fan thing, as opposed to what most likely will happen, is 2011. I remember thinking you had no idea what you were going to get out of that Cardinals team. You had old Berkman, you had a Terrio, you had an older core. Pujols was free agent year, but you didn't really know. That Cardinal team was either they're going to be good or they're going to be shitty, and they were shitty for 5/6 of the year.
Yeah, no, they were
they made a couple of deadline deals, not really anything magical, and then they got hot in the last week of the year, basically, because really it was like they were within 3 or 4 games of missing the playoffs.
That was the year. That was the year where the Cardinals and New York Giants accidentally won championships.
Yeah. No, exactly. David Freese was sober for a week and got,
right.
And I was going to SIUE at the time, so I was living in that every day. But anyways, I remember thinking that year, you just don't know what this Cardinals like. I mean, as someone who watched baseball every day and being in that area,
living in Missouri, I imagine it's like you're surrounded by the Cardinals.
Well, it was SIUE's in Illinois.
Oh, okay, but still like Cardinal area.
Yeah, Cardinal country though, and so I remember it's like you just didn't know, and I feel like with this Cubs team, I just have that best case scenario 2011 Cardinal vibes, where you have some pieces. You have some guys like a Dansby Swanson, but you don't know what you're really going to get out of Bellinger. A guy like Madrigal could have a bounce back year. I don't see it. I think I'm pretty much done with Madrigal.
I'm with you on that. I'm not a Madrigal fan. I hope I'm wrong.
Machine or whatever, but I'm just like, I'm just over it. He's not as a super prospect as what I thought he was.
I'm not.
I feel like a lot of people. I don't know.
Good trade for the Cubs still didn't work. It just didn't work out. I think.
I just don't know where. I think you have a guy like Justin Steele that could take the next step. And then you have bullpen guys like Wazinski that is Wazinski.
Wozniacki, I think is how it's said.
Is he going to be? I'm not really good. I'm feeling my MLB insider job, but is Wazinski going to be a starter?
Look, sometimes you just read these names and then you're like, oh shit, I got a Sam.
Right. Well, what's Wazinski's like official position? Is he going to be
I think he's mostly a starter, and he might do some kind of like what David Montgomery did for Mike Montgomery.
Mike.
I always confuse him. Football, baseball, but Mike Montgomery kind of did for us in 2016. Spot start and then long reliever type.
I mean, his delivery screams like dominant middle reliever to me. But
I love Wozniacki, and I'm like, I'm
way,
way too excited about Wozniacki. Like, I think he's gonna come in and put up ace numbers in 100 innings or so. Like not ace innings, but I do think he's gonna be like unbelievably good.
Right,
and that's my shameless optimism.
No, I know, and same. But like, I think, with those mixtures, I think you need, if Stroman's a little bit more consistent, so far I have been really impressed with Stroman.
Sure.
I think the louder people talk, he's overcompensating for what he's not good at. He's a big talker and he's like all about the Cubs culture, which I appreciate, right? As a fan, I'm like, hey, this guy buys in. But then you're like, oh, he's a 500 pitcher with like a 4.34 ERA at best,
Right. Although, I mean, he picked it up last year. Like he did. I know he did much better in the second half than the first half, I remember.
Right. Now you're right. I guess for me, like, just eyeball test, I'm just like, I can tell he's passionate and he wants to win and stuff, and I appreciate that. But I just like, I think I appreciate, at least on the pitch, like someone like him, just like be quiet a little bit and just perform.
Sure. No, absolutely. He is very vocal. I will say though, I do think his game would be elevated, and I say this about Hendricks too, and I say this about even Steele to an extent. I do think they would all do better if they had that one bona fide ace on the staff.
Yeah. So basically what I think best case scenario is, or like a Keegan Thompson, right?
Sure. A guy,
like take extraordinary steps. So you figure best case scenario, deadline, they're like within 3-4 games of the division. You trade kind of like a mid-level prospect, like not like a PCA or Brendan Davis.
Like you trade somebody like a
Canario, or even, depending on the situation, I would think even Owen Cassie.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
I think obviously I'm just spitting names here, but I'm like,
I think Killian, while his value is high, might be an interesting trade piece as well.
Yeah. And so, who knows what the deadline's going to look like, right? Like it's impossible to know like who might be available. And if you're within 3 or 4 games, you don't want to harpoon your whole season. Like if it fails, but you take a chance, you let the players know that you're trying, and you make the fan base excited. And hey, you try to go for that second or first wild card spot. I don't think that's completely out of the question.
I agree, and
actually, you know what? No,
especially with the way the playoffs are now, because you mentioned the 2011 Cardinals, they won the World Series when it was, I think, only 4 teams make the playoffs, and I think the Astros. I don't remember if they were still in I think they were still in our division. So it was 6 teams competing for the division, and only 4 total teams made the playoffs in each conference.
And they only won 86 games that year or something like that.
Yeah, something crazy. And now it's like 6 out of the 15 teams will make the playoffs in the National League. So everyone starts with I think that's I'm not great at math, but I think that's a 30% chance.
Yeah.
I'm going to run that number real quick. Let's see, 6.
I was a communication major in school.
It's a 40% chance. You start with you start with a 40% chance. Yeah, math was not my major, but yeah, you start with a 40% chance of making the playoffs. Obviously, that doesn't factor in skill or anything like that, but everyone, 0-0 opening day, you got a 40% shot at getting into the tournament. And I mean, there are there are really good teams in the NL. I think the Braves make it. I think the Mets make it. I think the Phillies probably make it. I could see a little World Series hangover too.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Dodgers make it. The Padres make it. Giants should push for it. And
I
then,
think the Cubs have to win the
Brewers,
division. I think the Cubs have to win the division, actually, now that I think of all this. I think
they probably do. But I also think the NL East will beat up on each other a lot.
Yeah, well, because there's not the balanced schedule anymore, or the imbalanced schedule. Right. So I think that changes a lot of things too, because I think teams like the Dodgers can't beat up on the Rockies and Arizona for 19 times.
That's true.
So I don't.
I guess that means we can't really beat up on the Reds and the Pirates.
Right. But then we get to I guess ideally sweep like the Royals.
Yeah, right.
Like cool. Ideally.
Right.
But that's just best case scenario, I think. And I don't know, no one else is saying like, oh, well, if they just do this and this, but that's just how I remember feeling about the Cardinals. They're like they could be an interesting piece.
No,
now,
the
Cubs have more younger people in the mix than what the Cardinals did at that time. So that makes it interesting. I mean, I want to say PCA up like now. I hope he seems like he's going to be better than Almora, but you just never know.
I was getting into this a little bit in the group we're in, or you were in for a while, and I was talking about like I just don't see. I was saying I don't see why PCA is more hyped than Almora was, because really they both projected to be brilliant outfielders who aren't great hitters. The difference is, and this is something that some of the guys pointed out to me, is that PCA is a little more patient. He walks a little more, and also just by virtue of being a left-handed hitter, he has that advantage. Like he is better against, like Almora was not very good against righties. I think PCA will be better against righties. I see him as like, honestly, this is going to sound like very exciting, and it's a little different because he will play center field, but I see him as like an Ichiro light.
Yeah.
Like
a little bit more pop, a little bit more natural pop, maybe.
Maybe a little more natural pop, and in center field. I guess he's, and if not, like I'm hoping we have our Jim Edmonds, man. Like that would be the coolest thing. And obviously as a Cubs fan, we're very affiliated with the Cardinals, so we keep up with everything the Cardinals do. The Cardinals are not a bad blueprint to follow when it comes to building a team, because they're competitive every single year. But I do think, what were you saying? You were saying about PCA. We were talking about one thing I will say, and something that plays in the Cubs' favor, and this is something that isn't backed up by like statistics, but the Cubs, they've done a good job bringing in guys who have experience winning this year. They brought in a lot of guys who have been on championship ball clubs. Eric Hosmer won it with the Royals in 2015. Obviously, Hendricks is still here from 2016. Hopefully he gets healthy soon. Then you got Swanson, who won it in 21. Bellinger, who kind of won it in 2020. I don't really count it, but we'll give him his flowers. And it's just like, do you think that kind of bringing in people who have winning playoff experience and who know what it's like to be in a winning ball club? Do you think that? I think that could have a very big impact on the team.
I do.
You think that matters at all?
I do, because I think guys like Morale, to a certain degree, Wisdom, because he's never won, right?
Yeah, no, Wisdom definitely not.
Yeah, it's like guys that go in, and let's say they are competitive. Let's say it comes July, and you're actually getting like a big 3-game series with the Mets, and it's like I think to a certain degree some of that stuff could be hyperbole.
Hyperbole, yeah.
Yeah, hyperbole, yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But I think you add in some guys and they're like, hey, look, we belong to be with these guys. Look at what you did last year to the Mets, and you swept them, and we weren't as good as what we are now. Look at us. We could do this. And the Swansons and the Bellingers of the world be like, we can do this, guys. We've seen it. You've seen all this before. You're just made to believe that you haven't.
Right.
And I think
like...
I think What I'm really curious about, what do you think about Morale?
Okay, a lot of people, especially in some of our groups, they're not big Morel fans, and I get it. Like I do think that to an extent he is overhyped by a lot of Cubs fans. They just hold him in this ridiculous high esteem. I love him. I think he is.
I have an auto. Do you see that?
I love that. That's so sick.
And
That's
I have
so
another.
sick.
I have another auto that I just
For those
got.
listening, it's he's got a Morel autographed rookie card, which is pretty gnarly. I can't tell who that is. Who's that?
That's Morale too.
Oh, that's Morel.
So it's an auto jersey. It's a game used jersey and an auto out of 10.
Sick. Oh, I love it.
And I love his energy. Like I love guys, because he's in. We all like guys that are infectious and just like, hell yeah,
Oh no, he brings like that rah energy to the clubhouse, and that's super important. I think he's amazing for the game of baseball. And the one thing is, I mean, unfortunately, with a lot of these guys, some of them like they just have one problem at the plate, and that costs them everything. Like he probably, like, I don't know what his specific problem is, but he strikes out a lot, and that's definitely cause for concern. But I don't have as high expectations for him as some of the other guys, because one, he's young, and he's still developing. He's I think he's 23. He's 5'11", really young. And I think he's listed at like 145. So he's still got like a lot of frame to fill out. So I'm not too worried about how he does at the plate at this point in his career. It's my dog. And I also think he's he contributes in so many other ways. Like he'll play all over the diamond for you. He's got a great arm, and I think he's going to get better at defense as his career progresses. He could steal a base. He's got great speed. I think, in this age, especially where you got where we have that the extra inning rule, where you always start with a guy on second. I think having a guy like Morel is super important for a ball club. And
what's his ceiling?
I just hope he gets a lot of at bats, because he's fun to root for. He's easy to root for, and I mean, if his one problem is that he strikes out too much as a 24-year-old kid, like we should be able to budget for that. Like we should be able to allow for a kid to make some mistakes given the amount of veteran talent we have around.
Well, and also I think if the rules work like they're supposed to, and the pitch clock goes, I think you'll see as the season goes on, that pitch clock will mean that some pitchers have a hard time adjusting to like recovering per pitch per se. Sure. And hypothetically, that could cut down on at least like 1 or 2% of his strikeouts that might turn into hits,
Oh, absolutely.
And like I said, that might be like, some of you might be rolling your eyes like, oh yeah, like, what if they're not? I'm like, I don't know. But I think that, the way the rules are dictating, it's supposed to maybe help guys like Morale. That might be, it might take a little bit 2 miles off that 99 heat, where now instead of 99, it's 96, and it's a little bit easier to hit.
Or, it could also throw pitchers off the rhythm to where they're just not as accurate with it. That's the other thing. That's why I think, guys like, and I know you're a big fan of this guy. I'm a big fan of this guy, even though he's not with the Cubs, Javi. I think Javi is going to benefit tremendously because, if pitchers are thrown off their rhythm and they can't throw that slider, or, they don't have as much trust in it, they're going to throw more fastballs. And Javi loves fastballs. I think he's going to have a very good year in Detroit. He had a good second half.
Yeah. What do you think Morale's ceiling is? Because I have a comparison in my mind, but what do you think his ceiling is? Like best comparison to a third baseman, either we've had or somebody.
I don't see him as a full-time. I don't necessarily see him as a full-time third baseman, but
let's just say he's on the diamond.
I don't have a comp for him yet because his body is so weird, and I don't mean that like in a he's got a weird body. Like I mean it in like a you don't really see guys like 6 feet tall who are that slender. And so I don't really have anything in mind. But what do you think? What is your
a poor man's Aramis Ramirez.
Okay, that's cool. I can mess with that.
I mean,
he does have power.
I mean, his power. I think. I don't off the top of my head. I don't have like a definitive like how his fielding is or not. I don't think it's exceptionally terrible or exceptionally well. I think Aramis.
Some fans would tell you it's terrible. I think it's.
But
I mean, he played all over the diamond, and he played all over the diamond. And he was a rookie, so I can't really hold it against it. Like it's hard to learn one position. He was learning like 7 positions,
and
so
people hated on Aramis. But I've seen a play where he dived on his knees and threw a ball across the diamond on a strike from his knees, And that takes skill to do that. Like, so I never understood the hate of Aramis. I was recovering from Sammy Sosa PTSD of my favorite player, so I didn't.
Yeah.
And the Derek Lee Aramis thing, I didn't have a favorite player because I was afraid to get attached to somebody like that.
Valid.
But as I grow older, I'm like, man, I should appreciate Aramis a lot more.
No, I'm definitely with you on that. I remember my grandfather, God rest his soul, saying to my just telling my dad, like, Aramis is shit. He's shit. It's like, nah, dude. Aramis he's a good ball player. He's a real good ball player. I think, a little overshadowed by Hall of Famer Scott Rowland in that division. But like,
he was every bit as good.
Consistent.
There's at least a 3 or 4 year period where you could put Aramis Ramirez up with, like, maybe not like the A-Rods of the world, right? But he's like second tier.
Oh yeah,
elite,
absolutely.
And
like he didn't get B+ player.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I will never know why Aramis was underappreciated the way he was. I don't know if anybody in your listeners can maybe.
I think it was my theory is that it was just like, first of all, Derek Lee was playing like Derek Lee had some amazing seasons that overshadowed his Ramirez a little bit. And Ramirez was more like the consistent type. I think Ramirez was respected. I just think that like there was a time when we had Ramirez, and then it was like kind of a black hole at third base before Bryant came along. And so I think Ramirez walked so Bryant could run, so to speak. And that kind of. But like, no, I think in my lifetime watching the Cubs, Ramirez is easily the second best third baseman we've ever had. And I could see Morel. I don't know if I could compare him to Ramirez just because it's like they do have very different skill sets. Like Ramirez won't swipe you a bag. Morel could swipe a bag. Morel could lay down a bunt. He could do all that stuff. So that's why I hesitate. Like I do think the Javi comparisons are kind of apt, but no one's Javi with the glove. Like let's just be real about that. But really, I'm just hoping he's Morel and that like he becomes kind of like his own thing.
So as we're sitting here, like, okay, so I have this, I'm a baseball card fan, right? And I like to do shadow boxes and stuff. This is the Cubs starting, like, mainly who's going to start at least a lot, like, from what I can get in cards so far. Do you see that?
Yes, I don't see any of the players, but I see it. It's a super sick setup.
Yeah, it's Etsy. Anyways, I just look at this, like, since I've had it, and I'm like, okay, what does that lineup look for me? And it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, I only have a card of Yan Gomes, so let's just say Yan Gomes, Stroman, Wisdom at first, Nico at second, right field Seiya. Seiya's health is also a big question.
That's the big question for me because if he's healthy, he should be like at least like a B+ player. Like he needs to.
I feel like it's already writing on the wall, though. I feel like that his injury is just going to linger all year.
I'm hoping it doesn't, but yeah,
I hope not. But you've seen this. You and I have seen this a million times, though. One thing in spring training, and it throws off the whole year because if he spends 6 weeks getting his timing, and then some, I just hope it doesn't. But anyways, you have Cody in center, Happ in left, Dansby at short, third base Morel. I know you can interchange some of those things.
Probably a little platooning with Wisdom and well, I think we're forgetting Mancini, who by the way is killing it this spring.
Yeah.
So we got Mancini. So really, first base is Mancini and Hosmer, who I think Mancini. By the way, he's the one I'm forgetting. He won a championship last year with the Astros. He wasn't great for them, but still really good player.
Right. Well, and it's one of those things like neither was Jock with the Atlanta, but he got him there.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely contributed. But
he for sure got him there.
And by the way, Morel and Wisdom are reverse splits guys. So Wisdom hits. What is Wisdom? Wisdom hits lefties, or at least last year he hit lefties pretty well. Did not do much damage against righties, and Morel did most of his damage against righties and not so much against lefties, which is kind of interesting. It kind of plays into David Roz's hands because he could platoon them a little bit at third base, which would be interesting to see.
I find it funny on those things just because, and I hate to do this, but when I played, I didn't face left-handers very much. So really, when I faced them, it was so awkward. Like it felt like, even though I'm a lefty myself, but I bat right-handed. I remember I didn't like it. It just felt real awkward coming at me. But yeah, guys like
felt weird facing a lefty.
Yeah, to me, but I didn't like. It didn't happen very often, so I don't know if that's why.
You also have the unfortunate genes where it's like where you throw lefty and hit righty. Usually, you want it to be the other way around.
I know.
That's just not very convenient. Because like you want that advantage at the plate.
I've tried to hit lefty to see how it feels because my dominant hand, right? But
right.
I feel like Ichiro only way less effective,
Yeah,
like,
right.
But like I think the key question with the Cubs is that first, so April, May, June, July, that first 4 months, what that looks like. Because if that looks trending upwards, then that's competing for a spot where they trade away somebody to help get an extra piece to propel this roster.
Yes,
And this is just speaking just for
postseason.
2022. If it starts to tank, if they start, if we're looking at June and they're, God forbid, 15 games below 500,
Right.
I mean, that's where you start bringing up. I think you bring up one of those prospects. I don't know who, because I don't think Brendan Davis is ready. Christian Hernandez is probably too young.
Unfortunately, Davis has been set back by some injuries.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I looked at the thing the other day. Jordan Wicks is actually supposed to be up this year at some point.
That'd be cool. Yeah, no, that's what I've read too. And Amaya as well.
Yeah. And I feel like I've been hearing him since I was like 16.
Yeah, I feel like Amaya has been set to come up every year since like 2020.
Yeah, right.
And also, we haven't even talked about, my Jewish brethren, Matt Mervis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude, he's a guy that's going to be a lot of – I think he's going to have one of those weeks where for some reason everyone just gives him fastballs, and I feel like he's going to have like the Ian Happ treatment where he has like 3 or 4 home runs in one series. And you're like, this guy can do no wrong. And then he's going to have the drop-off of, oh, hey, well, he does have to learn how to hit a curveball still.
Right, exactly. Like he's going to – Junior Lake, another guy who just like came up and just immediately started raking, and then it's like, all right, well, maybe we should not give him easy cheese every single pitch.
Right,
by the way, Matt Mervis, I'm just saying, like, in terms of what he looks like, he physically looks like the love child of Anthony Rizzo and Joey Votto.
So I heard that on MLB Network the other day that there's that comparison, and David Ross didn't want to do it, but he didn't disagree with it. He was like, I can't say it, you did.
Yeah, right.
Votto thing, but the look of Rizzo, the body type, was very similar. He didn't disagree with it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Also, by the way, like just a fun fact about him is he does have a really good throwing arm, which isn't, it's weird for a first baseman. It's like when a quarterback at the combine jumps super high. It's like, great. I don't know how that's going to help you, but awesome. But yeah, no, I do like Mervis. I like that he's kind of shot up the board. And, he projects to have 60 level power, which is like probably, in the 32 home run range every year. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. I think he's going to be quite good. I don't know if this is the year for him, but I absolutely think that he's going to be a contributor.
So I like Mancini. His story is amazing. He beat cancer. Right. My hot take is I don't think he has much left in the tank.
I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong, obviously.
I hope I am too, because it he's a likable guy and whatnot. But he was signed for like a 1 year. It's not like he signed for a ton of money, right? But
no, I think he's got a couple years. I just feel
like there's gonna be more instances where he leaves people on base and we're sitting there being like, rally killer,
right?
And I'm hoping wrong.
I could see that. I'm looking up his contract real quick just to see how long he's going to be with the Cubs.
Right, but I just if I had a hot take on guys that they brought in, that it's more likely Bellinger is going to have a bounce back than Mancini to be like this 20 home run, 70 RBI dude.
Yeah, no, I think I agree to an extent, because I know Bellinger is playing for a contract and I know that he can do it. I do think there are times with the Dodgers when he was just kind of complacent because they were just winning so much. I think he plays better when he constantly has to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. And that's why I do think he does have somewhat of a bounce back year, even if he's just like kind of average at the plate, like if he hits like 240, 330, 320 on base percentage and, hits for a good bit of power. He's one of the best defensive center fielders. So I see that as a win. By the way, Mancini's got a 2-year, $14 million contract. Really, that's a good contract for a player.
That is. I guess I was thinking it's on a 1-year deal for, but I want him to succeed. Obviously, I just if I play percentages, I would bet more Bellinger being, the guy that's like, if I don't succeed, well, I'm out of the league.
Yeah, pretty much.
As opposed to being
and if he does succeed, he's probably going to get $200 million somewhere.
Right. Which I don't know. It's kind of like, what's Jason Hayward going to do with the Dodgers, right? Like,
right.
Like, is it just what it is, or is he all of a sudden this different swing? I think it's like it. I don't know, but then I think that we're also more likely to see a Patrick Wisdom 0 for 30 with 20 strikeouts thing, and we have to wonder is that done? Is this over with?
No, honestly,
because I every time I think we're gonna get there, and not that I don't like the dude, right? I especially third, he's actually balanced third pretty well.
Yeah, no, he's good defense. I see him as like a cracked out David Bodie.
But like, I mean, yeah. But is there enough there for a sustained thing? I mean, let's just say they get in the playoff spot. I don't trust Wisdom to be clutch for us.
Yeah, same, not at all.
I don't want that to be my first baseman. I actually, because it's funny, I always think it's interesting when a player's rumored to be on your team, and then 4 years later you get him, and that's the Eric Hosmer thing.
Yeah, right. I feel like we talked about Hosmer to the Cubs for a very long time, and it's finally happened.
Like kind of like how I'm surprised we didn't get Julio Teheran eventually.
Yeah. Although I am excited. I am excited for Hosmer. I think he's still got something in the tank.
No, and actually I was kind of confused because I almost like I'm not a huge like advanced metrics person. I'm kind of like basic stat, like to me, I still don't exactly know what the line of an OBP is, like what the good or bad is. I'm just kind of told what it is.
No, I mean, I'm a professional fan. I get that. Like, I'm not like analytics can tell you so much, but like I like the eye test more than anything.
Right, and so the eye test for me is like, there's definitely worse players out there than Hosmer, so I don't know why he got released. I don't know if it was just a situational thing of like he just wasn't going to be the first baseman for the Red Sox.
I think it was mostly situational, and I think he might have been getting paid more than his numbers.
What they wanted to pay, yeah. Because when I saw you, I was like, is he now we talk about left fielders being mashers, and first base is the mashing position. Is Eric Hosmer your 30 home run masher? No,
but that's the thing. He's really not a masher. He's much more of a contact guy. Like he's got some pop, like he'll hit.
But do I think he's clutch as hell? And I think a guy that could really like elevate other people. I do.
Absolutely.
I do. And
he hope he has 200 career home runs almost. He's 196. So he could. Who knows? He could run into a few at Wrigley. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think he's absolutely a talent elevator.
Like it's kind of funny. Like we're going through all this roster, and I almost completely forgot like about Hosmer.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly.
Because I think in most years, he's your starting first baseman. In most years, he's your starting first baseman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, him, like he and Mancini could like definitely split time at first base. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Two solid veterans over there.
Well, and I guess it helps. I guess I would assume Hosmer is going to DH or first base every day.
Something like that. And I think Mervis, when he does come up, I don't know if he'll come up at the beginning of the year, but I do think Mervis will get some cracks at DH. I know Mancini's mostly going to play right field until Seiya comes back, hopefully sooner rather than later, because I don't want to do it. It just sucks paying a guy $85 million to be on the bench. I'm not blaming him for getting injured, but it just sucks. It's just unfortunate.
Well, it sucks that he bulked up and everyone's excited about that. But I mean, look at Giancarlo Stanton and all those other bulked up guys. They're just prone to injury. You know, it's like you could still hit your homers and not have to bulk up because almost like the human body wasn't built for athletic ability and being bulked up. And I saw that. I'm like, here we go. And
I don't know if you saw the pictures of Tyler O'Neill with the Cardinals. Yeah. He's jacked. But we'll see how that lasts. If that lasts.
And he's bonded about a little bit too, with the Cardinals. But I don't know.
I'm very excited. I will say.
I think I'm ready. An interesting rotation of what's going to happen with them. I think it obviously depends on injuries. I think like anything, it's going to be a long sprint. So it's going to be frustrating to be like, okay, well, who's the guy that should get full time between Hosmer, Mancini, and Wisdom, especially at first base?
Yeah. Well, I think Wisdom will get most of his reps at third, honestly. And, he'll probably get some reps, especially early on at first with Mancini and right. Hopefully we see some Mervis too. I'm ready. I mean, I'd love to see Mervis get called up early.
Man, you know how they say, like, no one's more popular in a city than the backup quarterback.
Than the backup. Yep, exactly.
Like no one's more popular than the prospect that's about to come up. And, the fans are like, he's going to show.
Even dumbass Bears fans this year were clamoring for Simeon when Fields wasn't playing well at the beginning of the year. It's like, really, you want Trevor Siemian? You think he's going to do better than Justin? But that's a whole other conversation, rabbit hole type thing.
But like, I just think that, I mean, just looking at this board here, I mean, like I said, the fact that you just don't know what you're going to get out of maybe 3 or 4 guys, but are perfectly serviceable people, and let's just say they're all healthy, right? It's like a good problem to have, but like ideally, they're just never going to be all healthy, especially with Saya. I just think it's going to be a lingering issue all year long now. I mean, prove me wrong, but whatever. It's kind of exciting. It's like, I think it's going to be kind of, even if it doesn't work out because of who they have coming up, I think it's, there's that like 6-week stretch in 2021 when, they were interesting. They just weren't that interesting. I don't know about you, but I found myself just like watching games on my phone, like get notifications.
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about like the end of 2021 when they had traded everyone? Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's kind of where I was at last year. After the summer, I was just like, I had the game on, but I found myself paying attention less and less. I think this year we're going to be competitive, like more competitive for a longer time.
Well,
I don't think we're going to be great, but I could see them being more competitive. I also think, and we didn't talk much about this, I kind of like the rotation this year. Adrian Sampson, hopefully he continues what he did last year, some of the good work, if he ends up, making the starting 5. So I guess the rotation looks like Stroman 1, or Steele 1, Stroman 2, then
Smiley, or
who now?
Smiley,
sure. Who had a really good year last year. Probably, there's someone else. Hendricks obviously is on the IL to start the season.
Also hot take. I love Hendricks. I met him in Pittsburgh. Got a picture with him.
He's my guy. My favorite baseball player of all time. I have his jersey.
I just he's already a soft toss, so the kind of takes a feel out. I just hope that his injury doesn't cook him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping he comes back and starts. Like if he could, the thing is, people forget, like he used to throw like 89, 90 sometimes. I'm hoping if he could just get back to like where he's gets a little more oomph on that fastball, just a tiny bit, I think he could be good again because his accuracy is always there. If he could just, get back to where he was like throwing 89, 90, and I know that's not very high, but for Hendricks, like when he's locating that changeup, he's overpowering.
The thing that worries me about the Cubs, though, and it was said this last year too, it's like, other than maybe one person, I think that was maybe Arrieta when he came back, but obviously we know how that was turning out. All of them were soft tossers. And it's like, in this age, you need at least 1 or maybe 3 guys out of the rotation to be able to throw that 98 to 99.
We signed Jameson Talon to the 4-year deal.
Yeah, I forget about. I didn't forget about James, but I feel like we didn't talk about the rotation that much. So
right. But he's pretty. He's a good. Like he's a solid number 2, number 3, number 4 starter.
But he's also not a guy that, say if we were to make the postseason, I'm not trusting his stuff to bring us to the promised land again either.
Neither am I. But I do think that like there's a certain level of depth that they have to the bullpen and whatnot that could catapult us.
I think that's my only problem with this rotation is, let's just say what it even looks like a year from now, and let's just assume obviously Stroman will be there. I think Hendricks is a free agent after this year.
I think he's got 2 more years.
Or 2 more years. Okay, 2024. It's like we have to either trade for one or free agent. Find us a Lester or an Arrieta again.
No, honestly.
Because honestly, yeah, there's guys like the Wazinski and whatever, but
he got a club option this year.
If you look at every World Series team, they all look different. But all of them have one thing in common. They have 1 or 2 absolute horses at the top. That guys that are, the Verlanders, the Scherzers, the Arrietas for 2 years.
We had 3 aces in Hendricks, Lester, and Arrieta. Because Hendricks was an ace. No way around it back then.
Oh no. Oh yeah. No, he was a crafty. I mean, he was, Greg
Maddox early on.
Junior,
straight up. He was really good.
But look at, so we even know that. So like I just think as a baseball fan maturing over the years about your views, I like to think I have at least.
Yeah, fair.
You look at what it really takes to win as opposed to what your team looks like at that moment, and it's like I feel like our rotation is filled with a bunch of serviceable guys, more than serviceable. But are you being like, yeah, that guy's going with me in Game 6 of the NLCS? No.
Yeah, it's like we have a bunch of guys who are 2s and 3s, not necessarily 1s though. Like we got some like I like our number 4 starter against most number 4 starters. You know, if Jameson Taillon, or I don't know how to say his name, if he's a number 4 starter, I like his chances against most number 4 starters. But like, I don't like our number 1, whoever it is, against most number 1s. So it's like very much a mixed bag of decent and not any spectacular.
And like I said, I think our pitching will be a lot, even MLB Network, even like Matt Vasgersian, so other people are like, don't sleep on the Cubs. They're a lot better than that 77-win Pacoda team. My only fear is that rotation will just, almost naturally one or the other is going to perform less or get hurt to where you have to rely on another guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe Keegan Thompson is a guy that could be an ace in the future,
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I don't see why not. Like, he's like, oftentimes it's like these unsung guys who you don't really, like aren't the most highly touted prospects who just come out of nowhere and shock the world.
Right. Well, really, Arrieta was a burnout, before.
I do like Steele, I will say. I am a big Justin Steele fan. And like I said, I am a big Wisniewski fan too.
No, I am too. I guess I just it's hard for me to, in the next couple of years, and I could be wrong, because like Arrieta wasn't Arrieta for those 2 years his whole career,
Right.
And neither well, John Lester always was, but like at that point he was like a gamer, like he knew the craft of pitching.
Right.
And it's like you'd feel better about your chances of doing anything in the postseason. Like, when the Cardinals make it every year in the postseason, anybody in their right mind can tell you that nothing was expected of them to win, and they didn't.
Right.
They've shown that like there's a reason why the Phillies beat them, because they just weren't that deep in the pitching.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
got there
That's
on 162 because they could beat the Marlins of the world, but they can't. They can't beat your quality teams where they've scouted you in and out. I feel like the Cubs pitching staff, it just needs more beef.
I'm completely with you on that. And I think especially, I think they just need a top of rotation guy. One guy I'd love to trade for, and you might roll your eyes at this one, but just given what he's done in the postseason, is Madison Bumgarner. I can't see him. I can't see him being on the Diamondbacks forever. And I know he hasn't put up the best numbers the past few years or so. It's hard to really be committed to the craft of pitching when you play for an organization as shitty as the Diamondbacks.
So I have a theory on it.
And I will shit on the Diamondbacks forever because they basically gave up Paul Goldschmidt to the Cardinals for nothing.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, I just, like a guy like that, someone who's a gamer who could give you 6 or 7 innings in the playoffs. I think Bumgarner's got very much a Lester quality to him. And if the Cubs are good, I'd love to see them make an under the radar move like that.
I just commented about this in the baseball group that I'm in. Is if you look at his stats, like obviously Hall of Famer in the postseason, but everywhere else he's not. He's average at best. Yeah. And it's almost like they say like postseason, there's a cost to that. And maybe with Bumgarner, like, yeah, he has 3 rings and he's never going to regret that because he did his best work against, I remember they saying like, the Royals couldn't hit Bumgarner for a week and he pitched like 3 of those games.
Yeah, he pitched like 3 games of the Royals. He was insane.
Yeah. So the cost of that is he probably wasted a lot of career bullets in that like 2-3 year stretch. Not saying wasted, right? But there's a reason why
he did get him paid.
Right. There's a reason why because like I thought it was weird before I really knew how he was in the regular season because, West Coast, you don't really watch those games, right? That he was going to the Diamondbacks. I was like, wouldn't like a contender like want him? But I looked at his numbers; they're very, very average at best. I feel like his. I mean, I feel like he should pitch on like 1,800 because his attitude pisses me off.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at his numbers now. He had a 4-year stretch in San Fran where his ERA was under 3, and he started 30-plus games in each of those years. But then I think after, he started to really – his numbers really started to elevate once he did join Arizona. I guess 2019 he wasn't that good. I mean, he started 34.
I think he had a freakish injury with a bike in Colorado one year. I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that, right? Didn't he have like something weird?
Look that up real quick. Madison Bumgarner injury.
Yeah, well,
because it affected his arm or shoulder. But like, I just feel like, if you get him on a rental, does he make the
2017 bike crash caused like put him on the DL or the DL was back then. But yeah,
shoulder injury or anything?
yes,
Or
I think it was a shoulder, but he still came back and pitched pretty well the following year or so. But then, I mean, the past 2 seasons, ERA well above 450.
Yeah.
Kind of, I'm just saying, kind of similar to Kyle Hendricks' numbers. You know, Hendricks obviously was lights out 2016, had some really good years early on, and then after like pitched well. Well, Hendricks did well in 2020, but like past few years, ERA definitely skyrocketed a bit. Bumgarner kind of similar. Past 2 years in Arizona, very high ERA, but I think put him on the mound in the playoffs. I think like
you wouldn't bet against him, even though
I would not bet against him. As a matter of fact, I think a 1-2 punch of Bumgarner Hendricks in the playoffs, like if they're both at their healthiest, I still think that gives you a good shot.
I mean, but you also have to remember, like, he wasn't completely invincible even at 16 because, Arrieta hit a 3-run home run off him.
I remember. That was the one, and that's, I mean.
And so it's like, you have to remember, like, even
that.
then, he probably wasn't that invincible as what he was made out to be by then because all those, I mean, no fault of his own, but, I really think the human body, unless you're Nolan Ryan, really only has so many bullets left in it,
To be fair to Bumgarner, I'm pretty sure that home run he gave up to Arrieta was the first postseason run he had given up in like 30 some innings. Like
really?
he had pitched this shutout against the Mets like the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And in the World Series, I think he gave up a grand total of 1 earned run over 21 innings. So really the first guy to get him that good was Jake Arrieta, which was so ironic and beautiful. We lost that game, but that was one of the especially now that knowing how everything went down, that was one of the best Cubs games. Easily one of my favorite Cubs losses of all time. But
right.
but yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, that was the last time he was in the playoffs, and like before then, dating back to the World Series in 2012, and then the 2014 run, 2016 run. He was kind of a playoff god. Like there was, very little. But then again, he is older now. He's 33, which feels young, but it's not that young. But for him, I don't know. I feel like he's been around much longer.
I feel like he's been around for like almost like 15 years. It feels like.
Right. It feels like.
But I think with him, I think with him is that attitude of this is like old schoolness, like piss on everybody, like yada yada. Like, that's great when you're good, but I feel like for him, he has that same attitude, but he can still have an ERA of 450. And when you're ERA of 450, that all other stuff just makes you look like an angry old man who can't do it anymore.
Exactly. It looks like a get off my lawn kind of guy. And that's kind of a bit of the John Lackey effect, because in 2016, John Lackey, he was kind of that pissy guy, but he was really good.
Well, but also I think, okay, so say if the Cubs trade for Bumgarner, hypothetically, right. I'd be excited for sure. I'd be tempted to at least for a year get a jersey.
No doubt.
Like a vet that I never thought was going to be on the Cubs, and now he is. That's kind of how I felt about Cargo. I'm like, what? We got Cargo? And
that was such a random thing.
Him and Jose Martinez, I was actually excited about. But anyways, I just think, I wouldn't be mad about it. But would I be surprised if he ended up faulting and giving up, 3 runs in 2 innings? I wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me. He could yell and scream and piss on people, and whatever, and get mad when someone pimps a home run off him. But like, if dude doesn't have it anymore, he'll always be. He can walk on water for postseason stuff. But like, at this point in his career, I just feel like he either wins you a game or he lasts 2 innings.
Or he'll like just shit down his leg, and that's kind of like that's why I'm like a little like more hesitant on him. He's kind of like an anomaly in that he's very well. He's unique in that. He's always brought his A game in the postseason. And it's more like, hypothetical. My point mainly is I'd love to be in a position where the Cubs are adding a veteran like that at the trade deadline this year.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. And that's what I'm saying is like almost the best case scenario is that's what happens. And then you just like roll the dice on what happens this season. Don't bet the farm on the future, but make the best possible scenario. And then let's say you make it to the NLDS. Well, everyone's going to be like, the Cubs are coming, kind of like what 15 happened. Like, the Cubs are coming, because knowing, like, what I got from this year's watching MLB Network, watching the Cubs convention, and even not just they were talking about the Cubs, but so many camps are finally admitting that every year you cannot expect to win the World Series. Even though as fans, you're told, but it was not, but I mean, Elijah, I could bet like the farm on this. That was never the narrative before. Every year it'd be like, yeah, like we're going to surprise some people. We're going to go to the World Series. Even be the Pirates, Tigers, whoever was real crappy that year. It was like, you heard that
This
no
is our
matter
year,
what.
baby.
Right. Like, we're going to shock some people. It's going to be amazing. And then they still lose 101 games.
100 losses later, yeah.
But it's like, thankfully, I think because everyone's like smarter now, like they know they can't just say that to fans and us be like, oh, yeah. But even, like the Royals camp or even the Cubs, like they don't say World Series. They just say, we're building, we're getting excited, we're becoming that next great Cub team. And, like it's possible to reach the postseason this year. And that's honestly, as a fan, I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah,
they're not walking to be like World
honesty.
Series or buzz. Like, I mean, obviously the players say they want to win the World Series, right? But to a degree, they know that, hey, we're going to put us in the best case scenario. Each individual player, I think, I don't know what
all I know is like I would much rather be playing competitive baseball in September and October, even if we don't have a great chance of winning those games, than go through another 2021, 2022 where it's like we're just shitty where we're completely useless by September, frankly.
That 2021 was like the first year since college. So I was in college from 2010 to 2012.
Right.
Or no, I was in college from 2009. Like after those two postseason, 2009 to 2012 was like probably the most least interested time I've been a Cubs fan. Now I kind of relegated to like watching. I went to plenty of games, especially when I was at SIUE. But it's like when you have life going on, you kind of like, okay, well, there are 20 games below 500. I'm gonna go do this, and I'll just look at updates on my phone. Now, don't be wrong.
No, honestly, and I don't even think that's like I wouldn't consider that fair weather. I consider that like you got shit to do, and the team's not compelling. You're not gonna like you'll keep up, you'll follow, you'll still love the team, but like you're not gonna tune into every single at bat because it's just like at a certain point they're wasting your time.
Right, and I think I used to struggle with that. It's like I don't want to be considered like a fair weather fan, but it's like I've been a fan since 1999. Like I know who I know who Corey Patterson, I know who Jeff Facero, like I know who these guys are. And so but also I think even when they're good, I will say smartphones have changed the way MLB app. I could see a home run hit and then see the highlight within 3 minutes. I mean, that's like watching the game, It's
unbelievable how like I remember being at my grandparents' house for a week in April and just like having to run into the living room or having to like constantly go into the computer room to check the score, and refresh the game day app and all that
Mine
stuff.
Was Yahoo Sports Game Day. Mine was Yahoo Sports Game Day on the computer.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, for me it was usually ESPN or MLB Game Day, but
or
it was
Gamecast, it was called Gamecast.
But no, it's definitely changed. And now that it has changed and I can watch all the games, damn it, I want my Cubs to be good.
Right. But now it's like even when they're good, it's like but even like so when they're good, and I feel like most fans can appreciate relate to this. It's like when they're good, you have shit to do no matter what, right? Like we're adults. We can't just like sit down and clear our schedule for 162 days a year. That's not realistic. People that tell you that, I'm like, then where do you work?
Yeah, right.
Like, do you not have a social life? Like, whatever. And it's like, but you're more tempted to like sit and watch it for 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah.
You're more tempted before it gets out of hand one way or the other. And it's like, or you're more tempted to like. Maybe not.
In some ways, the appeal for baseball to me is that like I like that regular season games. Like it's just really fun to have on when you're doing something else.
Yeah,
just like it's the best background noise in the world is baseball.
So like, I work from home, and I remember having the game on, and I didn't see it, but the Javi played in Pittsburgh, and I just saw a notification on Twitter saying Javi broke the internet, and I roll my chair back and watch the replay. And it was so funny because like I mean it was great, a great experience, like fun of how I was taking in baseball.
I love that play specifically because that play like it's one of those where you remember where you were when it happened. For me, I was on a road trip with my friends. I was driving from Virginia to California. We were like just getting into Tennessee, and like I was watching on my phone. The service wasn't really good, but it somehow service worked on this one play, and I screamed. And the people in the car were like, what's wrong? You good? And I was like, no, I just saw the craziest shit I've ever seen on a baseball field. And like, they weren't baseball fans in the car. My friends that were driving with me, they didn't love baseball, but I showed them the play. They were like, okay, that's the craziest shit I've ever seen. But yeah, that's one of those plays where it's like, that's going to stick with you, and you'll know where you were when it happened.
And all of our lives are separated different, right? Like, we all have different forms. And for me, it's like, I have notifications to every beat writer on the Cubs and like national beat writer, which sucks when you're streaming, and sometimes the streaming is like 40 seconds behind, so now you see what happens. But anyways, but it's like, I like that I could like have it as background noise. I like that MLB, before it became free, I paid for the Plus app every year because it was worth seeing the extra highlights and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's just nice to like, you can consume it in your own way and still be a great fan. You don't have to like, I would admit it'd be, I don't know, much respect to our grandparents who had to like sit and actually listen or watch it to really even be able to get a sense of what was going on.
Really tune in or like, watch every game. It's nice that the fan experience is more customizable now.
Right. Like, I mean, those ones, even in 21, I could say I probably didn't watch the last 6 weeks, really, a full game, but I knew what was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
I could still name them. I watched highlights. I could read the day-to-day stuff that was going on, and I could tell you as if I was watching it live, but you wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because, you get the highlights, you get the, you get the gist of it, and you get
the conversation, yeah.
Exactly.
I really think, because I used to, in high school, feel like I had to watch the game to be able to debate with my friends,
Yeah, honestly.
Because, like, oh, did you see
that was also back when you had to debate with your friends, and it wasn't as easy to just look things up to win the debates.
Right. And now I'm like, well, I don't have, people I debate with every day. It's, I don't have those same people in my life. I mean, internet, but not like your same friends you grew up with is different than just random internet strangers.
Right.
And I mean, and so it's like I don't feel like that pressure to like watch it every day. I don't know if this comes out right, but like since I don't have that, I'm like, if I want to, I'm gonna watch it. Like Sunday Night Baseball, if the Cubs are on, I never miss that, right?
Right.
But it's hard to it's hard to miss it's hard to watch a game that starts at 4 and you're still at work, and by the time you get to it, it's in the 6th inning. If they're losing by 5, well, whatever.
Like a 1:20 Wednesday game, against the Orioles, it's not going to be, it's just not. And you check your phone, they're down by 4. It's like, do I really want to watch this shit right now? Like,
you'll try again tomorrow,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's kind of how I look at it. And it's like,
baseball. The thing is, people forget, and like this is something interesting, is that it's not football where it's like you get 16 or you get, I guess now 17 games a season, and they're all big and they're all exciting and they're all on red zone and
interesting in their own way. They're all interesting in their own way.
Right. Like there's all storylines. It's not like that. Like baseball, there's 162 games. It is a marathon, and even the most loyal fans aren't gonna. Well, I guess some can, but like most of them are not going to be able to tune into every pitch of every game. That's an impractical expectation, and that's kind of why it's like, MLB's trying to make their game more marketable to the masses, but like, I'm sorry, but you're just, there's no way you're gonna be able to get me to tune into a full game between the Royals and the Tigers in July. It's just like some games, baseball, there's just gonna be a lot of forgotten shit.
Well, and at the end of the day, like, I think that's what's great about Twitter. Like, people say Twitter's dying, this or that. Like Elon Musk could say he hates puppies. I don't give a shit. As long as it's there for my baseball.
Yeah, right. I love Twitter, man. Like, whatever Twitter tells
me. Like, Twitter's such a great avenue for my baseball fix, for highlights, for whatever. That like I don't really care if it dies all the way around. As long as you give me be able to have the baseball part of it, I'm good. And I don't know how you feel about it, but
no, I'm with you. Like I pretty much use Twitter for sports. I just follow a bunch of beat writers and a bunch of teams. All right, just because we've been talking a while, it's been great having you on. We should wrap it up, and I want to wrap it up with our closing remarks. We should make our prediction for how many wins for the Cubs this year. We'll give us I'll say we'll give ourselves like a 5-game range. Like, will they have like 83 to 88? Will they have like 100 to 105? Something in that area. So what do you think? What are you thinking for the Cubs? In prediction for their final win total?
All right. So I'm going to be optimistic here just because, got to be optimistic every once in a while.
Of course.
I'm going to say because of the balanced schedule, and you're going to be able to see some teams at different times of the year that might not be very good. Say you catch the Yankees on a bad week. I'm going to say 84.
Okay. I like it.
Because I believe in something by the trade deadline that would skyrocket, Like I say they're going to be hang around and they'll be like, you know what, let's trade for somebody or let's bring up Mervis and put a jolt in the team. And I think that's just going to help.
Damn, I was also going to say 84. No, I probably shouldn't. I feel like 84 is like right in that sweet spot.
Yeah.
I agree with you, especially with the new schedule where, like you said, you get a whole bunch of different teams instead of just the teams you're used to playing, which is cool. I don't know if I like it more than the old way. I guess we'll find out. But
I would say I would still play the Cardinals 17 times and not complain about that, right? Like, because even in the bad years, it's just fun to play them,
Oh, I completely agree. I think rivalries are really important. I don't want rivalries in baseball to die. I think that's crazy.
Right. Obviously I don't know where you live now, but where I live,
I'm in LA now, so I got the Dodgers.
Oh man, I could never keep track where you are.
No, I'm everywhere. I'm always everywhere.
But anyways, where I live in Central Illinois, there's Cardinal fans, whatever, and just things are different. I could go to a bar and shoot the shit with somebody that's a Cardinal fan, and we just like talk about the faults of our own teams. Like luckily, a lot of Cardinal fans I know, even with Wilkins Contreras, aren't.
I will say that is pretty fortunate because, Dodger fans live out there in La La Land because it's like they're so used to having such great teams. They're
they
very
don't even
lucky.
care about the Cubs. They're like, who are they?
Yeah, they're like, who? Oh, yeah. those peasants.
Did we play them a couple times?
I think we have the Cardinals a total of 11 times this season.
See, that's just a shame. I'm honestly, I would take away more games from every other opponent in the division because I think MLB would have to recognize games against the Reds and Pirates don't matter. And to the Brewers, at least where I live, it doesn't make sense. But in Chicago, I feel like it's more of a bigger deal to people. But
yeah,
look, I would take away games from everyone in the division if we could play the Cardinals 20 times. I wouldn't mind
fair. See, for me, I don't even like I don't like that we play every team in the AL. I think that I like that playing in the AL, like playing AL teams. I think I like that it's like every couple years, like you don't see him that often. I think that's kind of cool.
So I was just thinking about the birthday party for my niece, well, my unofficial niece, my best friend. So he lives in Seattle now, and we're like, we should meet up once a year to try to like go to a ball game. I'm like, both of us want to go to like, let's see the Red Sox and Yankees, or Red Sox Stadium and the Yankee Stadium. What if? 1 year when the Cardinals are in town in Fenway, we go to Fenway. The next year when the Cardinals or when the Cubs are in Yankee Stadium, we go to Yankee Stadium. And the fact that we can count on that every year is kind of cool. And kind of cool.
That's a good point.
From that aspect.
Also, I forgot to count the London series. It's 13 games because they are playing in London in June.
Yeah, I thought it was around 13. I was going to trust you on that other number, though.
Yeah. There's 13, I think is correct.
I don't get to sit in on all the MLB insider meetings.
Fair.
But like I think just that part of it, because I like what the NBA does that, right? They play everyone.
Yes.
And I like that. Like I've thought about that before, but like years ago, I'm like, I hate that it has to be a big deal that we have to wait for 3 years to see Mike Trout. Or I hate that, if the Yankees and Cubs play on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on that year, you're SOL.
Right.
Because us normal people can't just go to New York on a Monday, like.
So that is nice that it's like, that's I do like that it does give you that option to like, now I think we're visiting the Tigers this time around, but like next year I might make a trip out to Chicago to see Javi come back.
Right.
Like it's one of those things where, it is nice to have that level of consistency. That's fair to see.
One last thing and I'll shut up. The thing that kills me, so all the other people, I'm pretty comfortable with them leaving or whatever. By now, I'm okay with it. But what sucks about Javi is they had an extension talking where they would have signed something, but COVID hit and the talk stopped and they never went back. And I'm like, COVID took a lot of things away.
Sad.
COVID
makes me sad because I don't think Swanson's that much of an upgrade. CC would hate me for saying that, but like I think they're both very good in different ways.
Are you I mean, did you know that story about Javi?
I think I had an inkling of it. Like I remember there were talks of an extension happening.
Yeah, he said for his words that they were like in talks, like probably pretty close, and then COVID hit and talks stopped, and then the way things go, it just never came back to the table. And I'm just like, God, COVID took a lot of things from society. A lot of people's lives were lost, unfortunately. But damn, it killed our chances with Javi.
That's true. I would have loved, I mean, say what you want. I love Bryant. I love Rizzo. I love all them. But like Javi, just like he felt like the identity of the Cubs for so long.
There's two players that I'm like, and this is why I'm not a GM ever. I'm just a fan.
Right.
Javi and Schwarber could bat 110 for my lineup, and I'd still let them play.
Honestly, that wouldn't be so bad. I like that. Schwarber too. Schwarber was the one I was upset that they didn't bring back after his year with Boston and Washington. Like I was upset the Phillies got him for 4 years, $80 million. And I think I'm right about that because he did lead the NL in home runs last year. So it's like he's the kind of guy that like you don't want to face him. You don't want to face a guy like that. He's
good. Well, and like Javi's and Schwarber's good moments, they just are so magical and they outweigh all the other stuff that is obviously frustrating and whatever. But damn it,
they have that clutch factor, and people don't believe in the clutch factor, but I believe in it. I think it's real.
Yeah, I mean, and when Javi's just so flair, we're like, I know he swings at curveballs at his head and stuff that's like, the ball goes in the dugout.
That slider. He loves that slider in the dirt. Can't stay away from it.
But so did Alfonso Soriano. But you know what? And I don't think it's gonna get me in trouble. But you know what they say why they swing at stuff so much is you can't walk off the island. You got to hit off it.
No, that's true. That's the thing. It's like that's the bad ball hitter theory, and that plays into a lot of my theory about what the Cubs are doing to their team.
And I hope that doesn't sound racist. Is that racist? I don't know.
I mean, it's not. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not the racist police, but like I do think.
But I've heard the phrase for years once, and I feel like I heard on TV like an analyst saying he didn't get mad, so I'm sure it's.
I think what it is like there's a certain level of truth to it of bad ball hitters. People who like it's a matter of swinging at everything because like, look, I could get into this theory in like this conversation for a very long time, but basically the thesis is, foreign players are more likely to be free swingers because, like you said, like their best shot at staying on a team, staying in Major League Baseball in America is, hitting and not just like walking, not just taking their base and whatnot.
Now that we're on
I also think it's just a different.
Now that we're on the subject, I remember being really pissed at Salvador Perez game, whatever of the World Series in 2014 when they lost, swinging at stuff in his head, like, and, obviously it nerves, whatever. But I remember at the time saying to somebody, like him and Bryce Harper have two different upbringings, right? Bryce Harper comes from a very reformed, fundamental baseball. Like understanding of strike zone, and
fundamental American baseball, that's the way it's not there here.
And I know this is sound dumb argument because obviously Salvador Perez is like, great, one of the best catchers of our generation, really.
Sure, absolutely.
But I just was like, at that time, I'm like, why swing at his head? I was like, why are you swinging at balls? I was like, and he ended up popping out weekly to foul ball, and I'm like, if you look at it, if you put Salvador Perez in a stable baseball background. He might not.
There might be more discipline there, sure. Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's kind of like the big question mark is like, like the way, and that's kind of part of the appeal of the World Baseball Classic is that like in different countries people play the game differently. They have higher priorities on different things. And
obviously that argument's flawed, right? Like I realize it's extremely flawed. I just remember being frustrated at the time wanting the Worlds to win. I'm like, play discipline. Like I'm sure there's a baseball academy somewhere where they teach that.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I'm sure like my summer learned that, in his Vegas baseball. I don't know. I was just.
No, it is. It's definitely, like especially like in the moment when your guys are like striking out, swinging at pitches in the dirt. It's like, really, we're going to be doing that? Like, come on. But at the same time, I forgive it for all the. And I'm really mainly talking about Javi specifically, but like I forgive it for when he makes those unbelievable plays from his knees or like steals home or dekes out a base runner or something like that. I'm willing to forgive it for moments like that. Anyway, we've been talking for 90 minutes, man. It's been great to have you on the show. Do you have any last words? Any last things you want to add about the Cubs before we wrap it up?
I just think that the young guys, a couple of them are going to come up this year, and I think it's going to really kind of shape for what the future looks like.
I agree. I'm this year. I'm hoping it's more like 2015 than 2014. And it does feel like the future, whether we like it, like, as much as I don't love every move the front office has made, I do think that the future is bright in the north side of Chicago for baseball. Hopefully I'm right about that. And I do think we'll be over 500 this year, but what do I know? And as always, listeners, tell me if I'm full of crap. Please let me know if I am full of crap.
I think I'm full of crap. I have to be just like some idiot who's full of crap. Please show up in the comments and tell me